October 18th, 2024. My name is Ethan Brooks, and I lived in a small town called Ashford, Oregon. During the day, I drove a delivery truck. At night, I filmed abandoned places for my YouTube channel. Most people believed those haunted videos were fake or staged. I used to think the same thing, until the night I crossed Blackwater Bridge. That evening, a cold rain had soaked the roads, and by midnight, a thick blanket of fog covered the entire highway. While checking my phone, I noticed a message from a local community page. If you hear a woman's voice calling from Blackwater Bridge, don't answer. Everyone who follows the voice disappears. I laughed, locked my phone, and kept driving. Ghost stories were everywhere online. Curiosity, however, has a way of making people ignore common sense. At 11:40 p.m., I pulled my pickup truck onto the old bridge. Built sometime in the 1950s, Blackwater Bridge stretched over a deep black river that locals avoided after sunset. Half of the streetlights no longer worked, leaving long sections swallowed by darkness.
What's up, everyone? Tonight we're exploring one of Oregon's most infamous haunted bridges.
Let's find out if these stories are real or just another internet legend. The moment I stepped onto the bridge, the temperature dropped. Not the normal chill of an autumn night. It felt like someone had opened the door to a giant freezer. I zipped up my jacket and continued walking. When I reached the center of the bridge, I heard it. A woman's voice, soft, almost whispering. "Help me." I froze. The camera was still recording. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. Only the sound of rushing water beneath the bridge. I convinced myself it had been the wind. Then, 2 minutes later, the voice returned, closer this time. "Please, don't leave me." A wave of cold ran down my spine. I slowly walked to the railing and aimed my flashlight into the river below. Nothing. Just dark water moving beneath the bridge. Then, my truck's horn suddenly blasted behind me. Once, twice, 3 times. I spun around and ran back. The truck was locked. The engine was off. No one was inside. So, who was leaning on the horn? For the first time that night, I felt genuine fear.
If you're enjoying these realistic American horror stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You never know, the next story might be based on a place you've actually visited.
I climbed into the truck and replayed the footage I had just recorded. Everything looked normal. My voice was clear. The bridge was empty, but the woman's voice wasn't there. Not even a whisper. It was as if I had been the only person who could hear it. Trying to calm myself down, I started the engine and prepared to leave. As I checked the rearview mirror, I saw someone standing in the middle of the bridge. A woman wearing a long white dress. Her face was hidden by the thick fog. I slammed on the brakes. I looked away for only a second. When I looked back, she was gone. "You're just tired," I whispered to myself. "Your mind is playing tricks on you." I drove home. The next morning, I transferred the footage onto my laptop. Everything seemed normal until I watched the final 5 seconds. As I ran back toward my truck, the camera had captured something I never saw that night. A woman, standing perfectly still. Beside her, a little boy. Both of them were staring directly into the camera. I knew for a fact, no one had been standing there. I zoomed in. The closer I looked, the worse it became. The little boy's eyes were completely black, and the woman was smiling. Then, without warning, my laptop speakers crackled. A quiet whisper filled the room. "We're waiting for you to come back." My heart nearly stopped. I slammed the laptop shut, but just before the screen went black, for a single frame, I saw my own reflection. Standing directly behind me was the woman in white. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman standing behind me, smiling without moving a single muscle. I kept telling myself it had to be a camera glitch, a reflection, anything except what I was thinking. The next morning, I uploaded a short teaser from the bridge to my YouTube channel. Within an hour, hundreds of comments appeared. Most people thought it was fake. Then one comment caught my attention. "Delete that footage. If she followed you home, don't go back to the bridge." The account had no profile picture, no subscribers, no videos. Just that one comment. I tried replying, but the account had already disappeared. That evening, I received a phone call from an unknown number. A man's voice, old and shaky, spoke before I could even say hello. "You went to Blackwater Bridge, didn't you?" I stayed silent. "Listen carefully," he continued. "If you heard her voice, she already knows your name." "Who are you?" I asked. "Someone who survived." The call ended. I tried calling back, but the number didn't exist. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus on anything. That night, strange things started happening inside my house. The kitchen faucet turned on by itself. The hallway lights flickered every few minutes. Around 2:17 a.m., I woke up because I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, heavy. There was no one else living with me. I grabbed a flashlight and quietly walked towards the staircase. Every step felt louder than the last. When I reached the second floor, the footsteps stopped. Complete silence. I checked every room. Nothing. Just as I turned to leave, I noticed one bedroom door slowly opening by itself. Inside, the room was empty, but written on the dusty window were 4 words: "Come back to us." My hands started shaking. I backed away without taking my eyes off the window. Suddenly, something whispered directly into my left ear. "You left too soon." I spun around. No one. The room was empty. I ran downstairs, grabbed my truck key, and drove straight to the nearest gas station. The bright lights and other people made me feel safe for the first time all night. While paying for coffee, the cashier looked at me strangely. "You look terrible," he said. "You been out near Blackwater Bridge?" I stared at him. "How do you know that?" He sighed. "My grandfather used to be a deputy around here. He always said the bridge doesn't haunt everyone. It chooses people." I felt my stomach tighten. Before I could ask another question, he pointed toward my truck outside. "There she is." I turned toward the window. Standing beside my truck was the woman in white, completely still, watching me. I rushed outside. The parking lot was empty. There was nobody there, only wet footprints, leading to the driver's side door. Enjoying the story? Subscribe now so you don't miss part 3. The ending reveals the terrifying truth behind Blackwater Bridge and why some voices should never be answered. I drove home just before sunrise. As soon as I parked, my phone buzzed. A new notification. Someone had emailed me an old newspaper clipping from October 1978. The headline read, "Mother and son missing after car plunges from Blackwater Bridge." Their bodies had never been found. Attached to the email was an old black and white photograph. The moment I opened it, I felt the blood drain from my face. It was the same woman, the same little boy, the same expression, the exact people I'd seen in my video. At the bottom of the email was a single sentence. "She isn't asking for help anymore. She's looking for someone to take her place." That night, at exactly 11:40 p.m., my phone rang. The caller ID showed only one word, Blackwater. I answered without thinking. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then, the woman's voice whispered one sentence that made my heart stop. "We're outside." Slowly, I looked toward my living room window. 2 figures were standing in my front yard, a woman in a white dress, and a little boy with completely black eyes. Neither of them moved. They were simply waiting. To be continued. Part 3, Final Ending. My hands were shaking. I looked out the window again. There was nothing. Just my empty front yard and a light rain falling under the streetlights. I took a deep breath and told myself it had all been stress. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks echoed through the house. I walked carefully toward the front door. I opened the live feed from my doorbell camera. No one was there. I refused to open the door. A few seconds later, the security camera automatically saved the recording. When I played it back, every drop of blood seemed to leave my body. The video clearly showed a woman in a long white dress standing directly in front of my door. The moment she slowly lifted her face toward the camera, the recording froze. At that exact second, the power went out. The entire house was swallowed by darkness. Then I heard it. Footsteps coming from upstairs. Slow, heavy, as if someone wanted me to follow them. I grabbed my flashlight and slowly climbed the stairs. The bedroom where I'd found the message the night before was already open. Inside, wet footprints covered the wooden floor. They led straight to the old closet. I slowly pulled the closet door open. It was empty, except for a small red rubber ball. The moment I picked it up, a little boy whispered behind me, "You're too late." I spun around. Standing in the doorway was the same little boy. His eyes were completely black. His face showed no emotion. Behind him stood the woman in white. She was smiling, but her lips never moved. I didn't wait another second. I ran downstairs, jumped into my truck, and drove straight back to Blackwater Bridge. I had no idea why, but deep down I knew this nightmare wouldn't end until I returned. Rain poured across the windshield. At exactly 11:40 p.m., I stepped onto the bridge once again. The entire bridge was buried beneath thick fog. I shouted into the darkness, "What do you want from me?" Silence. Then the woman slowly emerged from the mist. For the first time, I could clearly see her face. She didn't look angry. She looked heartbroken. In a trembling voice, she said, "I tried to save my son, but we both drowned in the river. Every year, someone hears our voices, and if they never return, we go looking for them." My voice shook. "If I came back, will it finally end?" She looked at me, then slowly nodded, without another word. She reached for the little boy's hand. Together, they disappeared into the fog. The freezing wind stopped instantly. The bridge became completely silent, as if no one had ever been there. I drove home before sunrise. From that night on, I never heard the voice again. I convinced myself it was finally over. 3 months later, I sold the camera I'd used that night. A week after selling it, I received an email from the new owner. It contained only one sentence. "Can you tell me why there's a woman in a white dress standing behind me during the last 5 seconds of every video I record?" I never replied, even now. Whenever October rain begins to fall and the clock reaches 11:40 p.m., I lock every door, close every curtain, and sometimes, when the wind is completely still, I still hear the same whisper outside my window. "We're waiting for you to come back, because now I know the truth." No one ever truly leaves Blackwater Bridge behind. If this story gave you chills, imagine what's waiting in the next one. Subscribe to Redhouse Horror for more realistic American horror stories inspired by urban legends, haunted places, and terrifying true style experiences. Because the next voice you hear in the dark might be calling your name. Subscribe now to Redhouse Horror, and don't forget to keep the lights on.